Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's ETA Prime back here again. Recently, I was able to go hands-on with the upcoming MSI Claw 8 AI Plus, and what I'm seeing so far is actually pretty good. I had a chance to spend about an hour and a half with this device, and the one that you're seeing here is actually an earlier prototype, and the lighting in the situation we had, basically a bar in Berlin, Germany, wasn't the greatest, but I tried to get as much footage and as much information as I possibly could about this new device. Either way, I did get to spend some time with it, and the overall feel here is actually really nice. Great thing about this is we're getting a much larger battery than the original MSI Claw. This one's going to be coming in at 80 watt hours. We also get an 8-inch 120Hz VRR display at 1200p. And of course, it's going to be powered by one of the new Intel Core Ultra 200 CPUs. Now, that was one of the main reasons I went to Germany, was to check out the launch of the new Core Ultra chips, mainly for that new iGPU, and what I've seen so far is actually really impressive, especially given the power limits that everything was set at. For instance, Intel had a nice little demo on display, and I was able to mess around with it for about 15 minutes. F1 2023 on the new Core Ultra 288 over on the right hand side with the brand new Arc iGPU using Xe2 cores. And on the left-hand side, we've got the Ryzen AI 9 370 with the Radeon 890M iGPU, which is definitely a powerhouse when it comes to an iGPU. Both of these, same exact settings, except for the scaling system they used. On the AMD, they used FSR, they used XeSS over on the Intel side, and both of these were running at high 1080p, 28 watt TDP set across the board. The Intel side definitely performed much better than the AMD side, but this is just one game, so keep that in mind. Either way, Intel is claiming that the new Ultra 9 288V, which is going to be their top-end chip for the Core Ultra series, beats out the HX 370 by up to 16% in gaming with that new iGPU, and it beats Meteor Lake by 31%, which is a really big jump over, let's say, the very first MSI Claw. Right now, the exact CPU model that MSI is going to be using in their upcoming Claw 8 AI Plus is unknown, but I have a feeling it's going to be a new Ultra 7 CPU, and that shares the same GPU with that 288V Intel claims beats the HX 370 by 16%. Basically, we're going to get a Core Ultra 200V Lunar Lake CPU, and that comes paired up with the new Arc iGPU with 8 Xe2 cores, and this is going to be known as the Intel Arc Graphics 140V. They also make a lower end version, but it doesn't make sense to go with the lower end version in a gaming handheld. RAM is going to be handled by LPDDR5X running at 8,533 MHz. We're also getting an 8-inch 1200p 120Hz display with variable refresh rate, 80 watt-hour battery, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, a 2280 M.2 SSD, so it's going to make it cheaper and easier to upgrade that storage in this new device. Intel is really pushing that Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4 with these new 2000V Lunar Lake chips. We're also getting Hall-based sticks and triggers with the Claw 8 AI Plus. So far, in the time that I've spent with the device, I've noticed that it's actually not as heavy as I thought it would be, given that we've got a much larger screen than most of the other ones on the market. And I did verify that it does have an 80 watt-hour battery, even though this is a prototype. Wanted to make sure it wasn't running a 50 watt-hour battery, keeping that weight down. Very comfortable, just like the first MSI Claw was. We've also got those front-facing stereo speakers. The D-pad on this was a bit sharp, so I mentioned to them, hopefully they can kind of dull that down a little bit. When it came to overall functionality of that D-pad, it worked great. It was just the way that the edges were shaped on it. Hopefully they can smooth them over just a little bit so your finger doesn't get caught on it when you're trying to do a special move, and that's one of the big reasons I look at these D-pads. I personally love fighting games on a handheld like this, and having a good D-pad is definitely a must. Having those dual Thunderbolt 4 ports up top is great. If you wanted to go with an eGPU through one of those ports, not a problem because both of them do run at a 40 gig protocol. You could use the other one for, let's say, an external drive, and it's still going to be running at really fast Thunderbolt 4 speeds. So if you do like using an external drive for more storage in games, it's going to work out great because we've got two to work with here. Still have that Mystic Lighting RGB around the analog sticks, and this is something that I don't see changing for a long time on these handhelds. A lot of people love having that extra flare, adding a little bit of color. You can customize it yourself, and the color here isn't exactly finalized. There are talks of possibly adding another color to their SKUs, but it's a little ways off right now. This is more of a sandy color, and it's not that bad against the black, But personally, I would love to see a white and black variant. I think it would contrast really well as a different SKU with an all black design, because there are people out there that just want that kind of plain Jane black look across the board with that RGB going. Not bad in a big handheld device like this. Another thing they showed off was a very early version of their upcoming Center M software, which I do think looks miles ahead of what they have right now on the MSI Claw. This is still in alpha, but yeah, I mean, it definitely looks a lot better in my opinion. When it comes down to it, I think MSI has listened to the community when it comes to complaints about the first MSI Claw. Taking a look at the performance of these new Core Ultra 2000V series chips, it definitely looks very, very promising, but I've got to get my hands on one just to see exactly what it can do at those lower wattages. Of course, the first generation Core Ultra could actually perform really well, but you had to bring that wattage way up, and it doesn't make sense for a handheld. But one of the great things, in my opinion, about these new Core Ultra 200V series chips from Intel is that they're 8 cores and 8 threads. They're no longer 16 cores, 22 threads, wasting all that power, especially in a thin and light or a handheld. And it means at those lower TDPs, we don't need to push as much over to the CPU side of things because we've got a lot less cores to power. Therefore, they can offload that extra over to the iGPU, keeping those clocks up, therefore giving us better gaming performance on these new Xe2 cores. So yeah, I'm actually really excited about this upcoming handheld, and they're looking to launch in January 2025. So they've got a little ways to work on some stuff. They could get this thing right before it hits the shelves, and hopefully that's what we see. But I really do need to get my hands on one of the new Core Ultra 200V series chips just to see what kind of real-world performance we're going to be getting out of this new iGPU. And while the exact chip they're going to be using in this handheld hasn't been confirmed, I got a feeling it's going to be something like that Core Ultra 7268V instead of the Core Ultra 9. They have the same GPUs, it's the new Arc 140V. They've got 8 Xe2 cores and they run at the same clock, so around 2 GHz max clock on that new iGPU. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I really appreciate you watching. Since this is going to be releasing around January 2025, they still have time to make changes. They still have time to make modifications. So I'd love to know from you, what would you like to see in this unit? Would you like to see different color variants, a swappable D-pad, rubber membrane behind the buttons, or dome switches? Let us know in the comments below because they do have time to kind of make those modifications. And after all, since we're the ones who are going to be using this device, we might as well have a little bit of say. We can actually bring this back to them. Whether they use that information or not is going to be totally up to them, but at least we can try. So let me know what kind of changes or additions you'd like to see with this upcoming handheld in the comments below. I will pass the information on, but that's going to wrap it up for this one. If you've got any questions, let me know down below. And like always, thanks for watching.